it'll be fed into a shredder. And then from the shredder, the material is ground up, more or less, and then it's fed to a dryer. The dryer is going to be utilizing heat energy from 4 spark ignition engines, more or less generator sets. And there's going to be 2 process heaters as well. That exhaust is going to be fed to the dryer to provide the heat to start preheating the material. From the dryer, they'll have a day bin or a surge bin to feed the 2 pyrolysis trains. They're 2 identical trains. You'll just see one on the diagram. From the in that pyrolysis trains, more or less the material is being heated up to high temperature heat without a flame, and it's gasifying that material. Basically, think of it's like a oven with no oxygen. So you're driving off the organic matter into a gas form. From there, they'll have some scrubbers and separators, because some of that gas will be condensable gas. Like, it'll condense into a tar or liquid. The tars will be fed to their process heaters. The oils will actually be fed back into the pyrolysis trains. Then from there, the gas will actually, acid gases will be scrubbed out, like hydrogen fluoride, hydrogen chloride, hydrogen sulfuric acid compounds will be scrubbed out, and then the clean gas will actually be used as fuel to run one of 4 more or less generator sets, which will actually produce electricity for the facility. To my understanding from Green Empire Generation, there's any solids that is actually recovered from the process is being proposed to be recycled. Like, they're going to work on separating metals out of that ash residue, and there is a market for the carbonized ash that is remaining.
Isn't on your diagram here of where that would be, where the gases would be released into the atmosphere. If that's what this hearing and this public meeting is about, it's not represented on your diagram. Can you explain why?
Because when you look at it from our perspective, we're looking at emission points. So, and fundamentally, we would only look at 2 points. Does that make sense? Just like the gentleman asked, the emergency flare and but the RTO. The problem comes in when we're actually looking at applicability. The process is what we have to look at first. Does that make sense? Okay. Good question. I'm Ed Andrews. I'm an engineer with our new source review program of the Division of Air Quality. Primary role is in the new.
Sorry, who do you work for?
The Division of Air Quality.
And who is that?
West Virginia?
West Virginia Division of Air Quality. The government.
Have you done this before? I mean, this process?
No.
Oh, okay.
Has this process been done in West Virginia?
No.
Oh, okay.
Actually, that's incorrect. It's actually been, there's one facility in New Mexico that's operated. Huh? I don't know the specs. I can't find no additional information on that.
Sir, have you ever done a process like this in any other state? I mean, anywhere? I mean, do you know anything about any of it? I mean, have you ever dealt with something like this before you came here? I just want a yes or no.
In terms of Pyrolysis,
That's
yes.
just another word for what you're doing. That's just another.
I've just never applied with medical waste. I've done a activated carbon.
Okay. That's, yeah.
Is that sufficient for your answer?
Not really. That doesn't make me comfortable, no. It doesn't. I'm sorry. Pyrolysis is just another word for the same technique you had back in 1990. It's the same thing, it's just gas. It's the same process. It's the same toxins and dioxins. And you can't guarantee that 100%. You cannot stand here and say that. There are always emissions. I don't care what you do. You will always have emissions. So go ahead, keep going.
So, ma'am, thank you for your comment there. I just want to, just so we're not trying to shout over everyone, if you could just please raise your hand and try to, and we'll get to you as quickly as we can, and try not to speak over other people so we can hear the questions and answers. And again, we will have time for official comments, so if you have something you feel is an official comment, I would like to ask you to hold that until we start taking that. Again, we're just trying to answer questions that you may have. So the gentleman right here in the blue pullover, go ahead. Yes, sir, you.
You know what I'm concerned about is the monitoring of the air emissions. So let me ask you a series of questions. You are going to monitor the emissions, right?
Now, can you clarify what are you envisioning monitoring emissions? Is it from the source?
We used to have a center plant here, and there was a 24-hour mechanism that monitored the emissions. I don't know if that was with Wheeling Pit or the state. So
Okay, no, can I stop with that one?
Yeah.
So that was a meteorological site on Mountain State. They agreed to install that facility to monitor. And we do, and we still operate.
Right.
We operate one in Follansbee, one monitoring site in Follansbee, 3 monitoring sites in Weirton. The Ohio EPA has a monitoring site in Steubenville. My understanding, regardless of this permitting action, those sites will continue to operate.
So you won't have another independent system to monitor, like people who live on Highland Hills might,
Right,
be facilitated by that?
right. Well, I'm not exactly sure where Highland Hills is, but I will look it up. But we actually have a monitoring site on, is it Mahan Lane?
This is leading to my real question.
Okay.
Obviously, someday, they're gonna have a problem. Their emissions are gonna be over these numbers that you told us about. How do we know that that has occurred? Is there a system by which we know it has occurred and that the state actually has data coming that they can see on a specific date that it was over that allowable emission?
We're not over
Let's stick with the one question first.
You see where I'm going with this? I mean,
Right.
if it happens, how do we know it happened if you're not really monitoring it? You know what I'm saying?
When we're monitoring the operations, the applicant will monitor the operations just like any other stationary.
State does that.
The facility.
Okay. I can see where this is going in the minds of people.
Well, I'm trying to answer your questions as
Yeah.
way I am.
You said fox in the hen house. It would be better if there was an independent third party. It could be funded by them. You know what I'm saying? They could fund it, but it'd be an independent party that has some, 24-hour a day monitoring of the situation.
The way we set up the permit, there's requirements for them to satisfy in terms of the monitoring. Now, they can hire third-party test firms, and most facilities actually do that because there's expertise you need to obtain. In terms of actually what you're asking for, a third-party monitoring company, I'm not aware of anybody doing that.
Isn't that what you're supposed to be doing?
Exactly. Hey, sir. So what we do is, we've got a couple inspectors, and we have inspectors all over the state. So what they periodically do is, depends on what type of facility it is and what program they fall under, we will actually have our inspectors visit the facility, review their records, and look at whether they have maintained below those limits or they exceeded them. And then they will talk to their supervisors whether there's sufficient data to say they're in compliance, if they're not in compliance, if it's inconclusive. So I mean, I'm just telling you,
I understand.
that's what we do today.
And you're going from the information that company supplies you,
Correct.
not from your own investigation of it.
Well, they may use the information they actually collect on site. Okay. All right, sorry. The gentleman goes, the question is, we are going on their own honesty. That is right. It's more or less somewhat of an honor system. But if the data doesn't support that, we will retrieve it from them. And it's certified. So one of the things you have to realize, the permit's a legal document. And when they certify they were in compliance with a stack test or report, they are basically, their responsible official is putting his name on the line, saying the information in there is true and accurate to his knowledge. That doesn't mean it always is, but until we find it's not, and then it becomes an issue. Okay, I like this lady here.
I know that you said that there's no like fire or anything involved, but you realize that pyrolysis stands for destruction by fire. I mean, that's the term. That's pyro means fire. If it's called, it's pyrolysis. Destruction by fire.
The way it's explained is there's no
So that's
oxygen.
an incinerator.
So if there's no oxygen, how do you have fire? There's no oxygen,
There's
They're-
no oxygen through that system at all.
not enough to sustain
We were told
combustion.
it was a closed system, and now they're asking for an interconnect. That's what
Did y'all hear the question in the back? All right. The ladies kind of made a statement. Pyrolysis
Same thing.
means fire. And my response is, way we understand this process is there's going to be no oxygen to support combustion. Okay?
The other part of what she said,
To address that gentleman's concern, and I think the concern of a lot of people around here, I've been part of a science-based and community-organized group that's been monitoring actually the air quality in the Ohio Valley region with some, little funding that we got together. But we recently were awarded a grant from the U.S. EPA for doing low-cost community monitoring. So these are provided to citizens at no cost to the citizens. And we can blanket this area with these types of monitors. Brooke County is one of the counties that is explicitly called out in our proposal, and so that funding starts in January of this year. So I was wondering, my question would be, would the Department of Air Quality be welcome to, and you all are welcome, but would you welcome us to work together to use the data that we would collect, and we have collected for the Ohio Valley area, to address issues that concern the people and the health of the people in this room? All right.
Okay. I'm Laura Crowder, I'm the director for the Division of Air Quality. And what you're talking about are low-cost sensors.
Yeah.
And yes, they are available and they do give for certain pollutants, they do have valid data. They do not meet what's considered regulatory. There are specific requirements when we have to put in monitoring, like we have at the Follansbee station. We have monitors there. There are specific siting requirements. There are specific requirements that we have to meet that even though you have a grant from EPA that you do not have to meet. So we can look at the data and we can look at it to see if there are trends, but we cannot use that data to meet our regulatory requirements.
Okay, well then I'll just offer it up that for data that's accessible to everybody here, because this is online data given in real time, so you can respond, like, I'm smelling something in the room or outside my house, you can respond. So even though it may not be able to be used in regulatory arenas, it will be really useful for you all. It's proven very useful for people up in Salem Township and other areas down in Powhatan that we've installed these monitors. So yeah, one thing is though, we use these more to get a better idea. Like, what are your 4 monitors that you have in the station now monitoring? What are the SOx, NOx?
SO2, sulfur dioxide, ozone, particulate matter less than 2.5 microns, and a PM10. Particulate matter less than 10 microns.
Any volatile organic compounds?
Steubenville monitor does some organics. A lot. I mean, I can't rattle off the number.
That's one of the things that we've found is that the monitoring that's been going on in the valley since I was a kid here was for coal burning, steel work, the stuff that we grew up with. But that's evolving now. I mean, the petrochemical industry that's really making its print in Appalachia is bringing other contaminants to us that are not being monitored by US EPA or state monitors. And so these do have VOC chips in them. It also has meteorological data that's contained in these. And yes, the data cannot be used currently for regulatory purposes. However, it is again useful for us living down in the valley here. So,
Hey, sir.
yeah.
What monitor is that?
This is actually the purple air monitor. This is put out by a company, and these are being used by the US EPA actually for
And a lot of concerns. So I'm going to. There was a question on the emission points, and to correct, there are emissions that come off of regenerative thermal oxidizers. There are, and there's also emissions that will come off the generator set, and those generator sets are equivalent to diesel truck engines, and there's 4 of them. And the idea is that we would be circulating as much gas as possible back in, cleaning it up and catching the VOCs and other volatile compounds that would come through that gas. Therefore, if you look at our application, we are well below the threshold limits. We are far below the Rule 13 limits, and we do not qualify for Title 5. So hopefully that would answer some questions on the regenerative thermal oxidizer and on the generation set for your emission points.
Before you go,
I'll be here all night, sir.
no, right here. You just said all the things you're going to do. This is my biggest concern. Right here. Right there. See that truck? You see that truck?
5 trucks a day, sir.
5 trucks a day, doesn't matter if it's one. What if it gets in a wreck right out here and this shit's spread all over the road?
We're working with the Follansbee Fire Department on response to that.
Okay, so we're not doing hazmat things or anything like that. We're just doing, well, and I love Larry. He's a great
I have to
fireman.
defer to the fire chief on that.
But you know what? We're talking something that's definitely a hazmat concern, without a doubt. They're making everybody wear masks for COVID for 2 years, and this stuff, I got to tell you, doesn't seem like it's real clean. I got to be honest with you. It's got to be coming into the air. So that's my concern. Tell me that.
Thank you, Larry.
What's your mic? Emergency Services Director in Brooke County, we did. Can you hear me?
No, not without a mic.
Yeah. All right. Back when I was Officer of Emergency Services Director, we did commodity flow studies. Part of our jurisdiction covers Route 22. Some of the things that come through here were already medical waste. We knew that. Now, not anywhere near the volume that we would get with this plant. But yes. And you'd be surprised of how many of them get dumped that you don't know about. Now, that being said, yes, we are trained to handle this just like any other hazardous material that goes up and down this road. And that's a fact. If it doesn't comfort you enough, I'm sorry. But yes, we've actually had one time from one of the sewage treatment plants in PA up 122 came through and dumped raw sewage.
Was it medical
We
waste?
handled that raw sewage. Okay, but I'm telling you, these are the things that I understand that. I'm just saying, we handle a multitude of things. And that is one of them. It's treated as hazardous material. Operations level, we call in the technicians if we have to. But yes, on hazardous materials, we're trained on it.
So you said that, it's not a Title V permit. I'm just trying to clarify. Is it a Title V permit that they're applying for?
Okay, the question is this a Title V facility? Based on the application that we received, this is not a Title V facility.
Hold on, please.
Say again? Okay, Title V comes from the Clean Air Act. It's Title V. EPA created Title V to more or less set a permitting program to encompass like all the applicable requirements for a facility, such as I'll use the old Mountain State Carbon coke plant. There's multiple different rules and regulations that apply to the facility, but they never had a single permit that covered all those requirements in one working federally enforceable document. So EPA created this program basically telling states you need to develop a permitting program to force your major sources of air pollution to come in and get a federally enforceable permit that outlines all the requirements a facility needs to comply with under the Clean Air Act.
Can I ask, based on your engineering report, you stated that they are just below the threshold to apply for a major source Title V application, and that you are not convinced that it actually will, that their emittance will be 99 tons per year of CO. You believe that the facility is possible, it's possible to have more CO in the atmosphere than 99 tons, which is 1 ton less than the threshold, which is 100 tons per year to have to file Title V as a major source.
So shorten your question down is the source proposed a CO limit of 99 tons. The Title V threshold is 100 tons. The question is more or less, why did we say that in the fact sheet, more or less? So what happens in these Rule 13 permits, one of the things we do is companies don't want to be in that Title V program because there's more reporting requirements. So what sources do is some sources know they will never operate 8,760 hours in a year. So they'll come in and take a limit of 7,000. Okay? That's a physical limit that we actually put in the permit and say you're at 7,000 hours, your emission rate, such as was pointed out, was going to be 99 tons. That's a synthetic minor. So what that does for us is we emphasize that in the permit. Now, my colleagues on the enforcement side, they've been instructed that synthetic minors, they get inspected the same frequency as the Title V's because they have took a limit to avoid the program. Because one of the big things that were emphasized by by EPA is, did the facility get the proper permits? And one of the things is they're always cognizant. If they got a limitation to avoid the program, the state needs to emphasize inspecting that. So essentially, we do it a lot in our permitting program because it is recognized by the federal government as federally enforceable. So what happened in the application, I could not definitively say that control device is keeping you below the 100 tons. So I erred on the kind of being conservative, and therefore I said it's a synthetic miner. So basically triggers in my colleagues in enforcement, you're going to come out and visit the facility most likely 2 years, the same frequency as a Title V. Does that answer your question?
They trust them to
submit their own data.
Right. But we do visit the facility, like I explained.
every 2 years, a lot can happen in 2 years.
That's the problem is we got a lot more sources, and this is the resources we have.
I got a question. You mentioned VOC. VOCs are basically volatile organic compounds, okay? Around water authority, we have to submit reports every quarter on our water for volatile organic compounds. So my question is, what is their monitoring from a volatile organic compound? No. They have,
So
we have to send ours to an independent lab, okay? So are they under the same restrictions as what I am, or are they different?
So air and water is a lot different. So the question is, in terms of volatile organic compounds, what really are they monitoring? And catch two is, what we look at is volatile organic compounds not including water, methane, and ethane. So more or less C1, C2, and water. So we have a couple of test methods that basically capture all the hydrocarbons on that demonstration. They'll do an initial test. They'll actually do a destruction efficiency test to ensure that the regenerative thermal oxidizer is achieving 95% destruction efficiency or better. And yes, they'll do initial, and then we've got some subsequent testing built into the permit. We're going to have them monitor their CO and oxide of nitrogen, because lots of times if the CO starts going up, your VOCs are going up because it's not achieving the same destruction efficiency. So it triggers them to test again. And
Aren't they doing that test frequently? Is it every 2 years?
well, there's
Can you ask them?
Now, these are questions for the company to answer.
Yeah.
well, I prescribed it in the permit. Does that make sense?
Well, then why aren't you making them test it?
Let me put this. I want to have you make that as a comment, and we'll work that issue.
Yeah, I can like boost, but I know she's been waiting too. I'm just wondering what the manpower is. Like, I know that you're saying that every 2 years people are going to check it out, but I know like we're understaffed as a state to begin with, like in everything across the board. So I'm just wondering like how we're going to magically get more people involved.
The question is manpower for the agency, and I'm just the permit writer. I can't forecast the manpower. I can bend the enforcement's ear at times. And the director's going to take the call.
Okay, for enforcement, we do, in addition to the fact that the inspectors have to go on site, We also have reporting requirements. Ed has put requirements in there where the company has to do monitoring on site of different parameters. There's a whole slew of parameters that they have to monitor. They have to do reports to us on a regular basis. We have to review those reports. We look at them annually, and some of them are quarterly. You have to look at the frequency that Ed has set up. There's requirements for them to do periodic testing, not just every couple years, but some of them, I looked at them, some of them are depending on their the pollutant. Some of them can be as much as, I believe, monthly, and every 6 months, depending on the testing or the frequency and what the values you get. So there is more frequent testing than just every 2 years. The inspectors have to, according to our agreements with EPA, for us to run our program, they have to go on site at least every 2 years. The company has to do reports, which we review much more frequently. As far as monitor or budgeting and increase, that's we're not going to get into all of that. So I'll take the.
Hi, how are you guys going to confirm that the company is accurate in those reports with auditing with these self-reported items?
Okay, for different types of monitoring require different, like some of them would require certified emissions monitors. Like if you have to have a monitor, a continuous monitor, you have to go through you have a third party come in and test it periodically. You don't just put it in once and say, oh, it's going to run forever. You actually have to test to make sure that it's accurate. You have to do that on a specific frequency depending on the different thing. Depends on the program. The program and what you're monitoring and what you're. They vary. It's like for a I used to inspect power plants, and they would have to test for they would have SIMs. They would have continuous monitors on their stacks, and they would monitor a number of pollutants. And
we're not having SIMs on
no SIMs.
No SIMs?
So, but
continuous parameters.
Okay, parameters as opposed when you set up a parameter and you say if I'm burning a certain amount of fuel, the emissions from burning that fuel. So you monitor the parameter. If you monitor if you're going to burn gas in your car, for so much gas that you burn, you can expect that you're going to have certain emissions, because that's how it works. So you monitor the specific parameter. You don't necessarily have to have a monitor that says what every pollutant in your gas stream on the exhaust of your car. You can put in and say, if I burn X number of gallons of gasoline, I have these emissions. That's when he says they have to monitor certain parameters. That's what they're monitoring. Even with parameters, you still have to look at, for certain of them, if they're monitoring, you said CO and NOx, so they're going to monitor those. Those values will give you an indication as to what the other pollutants are. So
SO2? Right, yeah, we are not sticking the probe in the stack.
They are, right?
Right.
Okay.
What do you mean by third party? Independent, or their company are doing that testing to give you?
When you certify a like if you're monitoring
define third party for me if you're getting this information.
So it's going to be green and then
when I say third party, if you're like for a stack test, you would hire a company, another company to come in and do a stack test.
Who hires the company?
They do. They hire the company. But okay, but
that's all I want. You don't need to define. You don't need to. That's all I needed to know. Who hires the third party?
Well,
that's okay.
Okay. All I'm gonna say.
You can continue with somebody else. Really, that's all.
Okay. Well, there's a.
Two questions. One, the monitoring station on Man's Lane. Do we have real-time access to the data from that? Can we go look at what's coming into there that we reported?
It's not.
It's so the real-time data is not exactly publicly available, because we actually have staff that actually reviews that data to ensure it's QA, QC, and then it goes all up to EPA.
And they report that, how often do they?
We report it, I believe, once a quarter.
And that's acceptable?
That, once it goes to EPA, you can actually access it through, they use a ambient air monitoring site, and you can look at the data.
Next question. Can we get a commitment from this company to have us see in real time the monitoring that they're doing? In some way. I mean, there's a thing called the internet, and we can easily publish it out there.
You know what? I would like you to make that as a comment for the record, if you don't.
Well, just,
Okay.
can you get a comment from the company on that comment? Are they willing to say anything?
No, apparently not.
Okay. That's a signal. Thank you.
I don't know if this is going to be.
Can we
a
get the
comment.
microphone so we can hear?
I don't know if this is going to be a comment or a question, but I'm going to run this by you. This is a $4 billion a year business, okay? Let's get this straight. This is a very wealthy business. What you're saying, he's saying there's a possibility there won't be emissions. Possible? Possible. Okay, he doesn't live here. We do, okay? If he wants to move here, that'd be good. But you're going to have containers on that shipping dock. You're going to have trucks coming in. You're going to have barges coming in. 70 tons starting out. How many tons are coming? Where are you going to store all this? Because you won't have the manpower to process all that at that amount of time. What's going in those containers? What are you going to monitor them with? When they're sitting there, what are they holding? What's in there?
Can I ask you to make that as a comment, please?
Comment's fine.
Thank you.
So this states that there's 2 tons of total hazardous air pollutants going into the air. Can you explain to everybody in this community what hazardous air pollutants are?
Okay.
Break it down.
The question is, first of all, what are hazardous air pollutants? And I want to more or less,
The 2 tons.
the 2 tons,
Emitted.
it's mainly the acid gases such as HCl, hydrochloric acid. You can try to burn it. It's, when you burn chlorinated compounds, it makes HCl. Bottom line. Same thing with fluorides. You burn any kind of fluoride compound, it's going to form hydrogen fluoride. You're going to have some organics such as benzene, toluene, xylene, mercury is my understanding, that's where it can be considered hazardous waste, and they're not to dispose of it with their medical waste.
But you stated that there was no way to really tell.
It's the generator that's
What
when
was
you're.
coming in there. There's nobody really monitoring.
No,
What you
because
said. Correct.
this is the air.
I said it, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to look for radioactivity. Yes.
Can we let the Bureau of Health, DHHR, please answer the questions related
Okay.
to?
Okay, I believe the question was,
Introduce yourself, please.
it's Donna Gorby-Michael, I'm with the DHHR Infectious Medical Waste Program. So the question was, does anyone monitor what goes in those containers? And yes, we do monitor what goes in those containers. There's a set of requirements that each hospital and doctor's office and dentist office in this state has to adhere to. So yes, they segregate their waste and it's put into the proper containers. That's about what I can tell you on the infectious medical waste end. Ed, you want any more questions on the med waste? Oh, I'm not going away. I won't go away. Oh, good. I'm glad. Go ahead.
My name's Frank Rockio. You're with the infectious medical waste.
Yes.
So there will be a point in time, and it's not here, but there will be a point in time in the near future where the company files to handle category A infectious waste. Is that correct? Yes. Yeah.
What was his question? Can you repeat the question?
Yes.
Yes,
and then we have not received a full application yet.
So that will be coming down the pipeline. So this is just
Yes,
the
this
beginning.
is the beginning.
And then there's gonna be category A infectious waste.
Yes.
And that's a whole new thing. That's a whole other permit.
That's a whole other permit.
Gotcha, thank you.
Yes.
They also filed for a permit in Wellsburg.
Does this have anything to do with the permit that this company also just asked about for the water stuff that they advertised in Wellsburg instead of in Weirton?
That I do not know. Ed, do you know that?
I do
you know
not.
that?
Can the company comment on that?
She also has a question over there, and I don't think anyone can see her. She's been having her hand raised.
I know. Well, can we get clarification on that first? Can the company comment on that if you don't know?
Katie, has the what was it in the Wellsburg? The
Yeah, so
Burke
in the-
County review, was that for the stormwater discharge permit?
Oh, it's still like it's from the same company, so I just assumed they were the same.
If you don't mind, just you got my contact information. Just email me
I'll email you.
the ad, and I'll talk to the water folks.
Okay. Thank you.
They used a different company to apply for the water from Wellsburg. That is the same company.
The question was, where is this waste coming from? For right now, they have told us that it's coming from the state of West Virginia. Like
That's
I
not what it said in the permit.
We have not received a full application. Once that application is filed and we have that information, it will become public knowledge for everyone.
Okay, question for you.
Yeah, they're gonna ship it all the way north if it's in West
So
Virginia.
you mentioned the Brook Review. All right. You mentioned the Brook Review, okay, for public information and everything. That is a nice little newspaper, but it has the smallest circulation of any periodical anywhere. Okay, so you have reached the smallest amount of people that you can. I know how that works. I've done it. Okay, I know how it works. I've done it. I've used that paper for that specific reason because of the small. So that's not one you're going to be able to shy off of.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
What was that comment? What did I do? I'm not your attorney. I never told you that. Now, but if being legal, that is the legal paper that you're supposed to put that in. You're right. All right. But you are 100% right. That, I mean, hell, I'm an attorney. I didn't even know it existed until I started working down here. Because there was another piece. But I don't think I ever said that, Scotty. But I agree that that is the legal place where it's supposed to go in the Brook Review. That's by law. That's where it's supposed to go.
In addition, so the state had to run their notification. However, as a company, they were required to run the notification. And that notification did run in the Weirton Daily Time. So it did run in both newspapers, some form of that notification.
Okay, this lady up here had a question.
I just wanted to clarify about where the waste was coming from and the sorting in particular. If I'm not mistaken, he said at the beginning that we were trusting the facilities to properly disperse that waste, and that there's no real oversight of that. I mean, you may test it periodically, but wherever this waste is coming from, whether it's West Virginia or somewhere else in the United States, we are trusting the actual facility, medical facility, that they are sorting that properly. Okay.
It sounded like you did say there is monitoring of the waste from the facilities within the state.
We inspect each facility once a year.
Get them right.
Any waste that comes from outside the state, we have no control over.
Good.
We cannot inspect an out-of-state facility, so we can only inspect and monitor the facilities which are in-state, okay?
Then why would you accept it from
The
out of state?
hospitals, clinics, dentist office, any of a medical provider would generate infectious medical waste.
Why would you accept it from out of state?
Because it's money.
Who would want
Monitor what? Are you talking about the waste out of state? Then they have, what is equivalent to my position, say in Ohio. And they go around and they do the same thing. Now I will tell you that each state has different rules for infectious medical
bet
waste,
they do.
okay? So my rule would not pertain to someone in Ohio and vice versa. It does have to meet, it depends on where it is destroyed. So it will have to meet certain requirements as far as packaging and that type of thing, okay? As it comes across the line.
If coming from West Virginia, why is it flying? Why won't we just use railroad or say the road services that we already have?
Okay, the question was if it's coming from West Virginia, why is it flying?
Yeah, why do we need everything if it's just here in our own state?
I'm not aware that we're flying any in at this point, okay? What's going in there, okay, go ahead.
My next question is that they are going to process, well, they want to process 5 truckloads a day, correct? And the 70 tons is only for the 4 truckloads. The additional 5th truckload, from my understanding, couldn't be processed that day. So is there any permit pending for a storage for the additional waste that they are unable to process at the time?
And that is one of those questions I cannot answer because I do not have a full application in front of me. Once I have that information, I will be able to answer that question for you.
I had a question about the biofuel process. We haven't addressed that yet, is that okay? I understand that the waste that's brought in is processed and turned into biofuel, correct?
Well, it's when the gas is generated, we consider it a fuel. So is that what you're considering is maybe biofuel?
Product that the waste turns into, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, the synthetic gas.
Yes, correct. And that is all.
Correct.
So everything being brought in is
Yes, it's, I don't like to use the term as a perpetual wheel, but as the gas generates, they're going to utilize the gas. No. The application we received, there's not going to be like any commercial sale of the syngas.
That is a lie. Is it? Yes.
And we're gonna have to start taking the public comments here. I'll let this gentleman have the last question, and we will answer. We will respond to comments in writing. So if you have any comments, you can submit them to us in writing or verbally here tonight, and we will respond to all of them in writing.
Since some of this, the feedstock is going to be coming from out of state, and there might be different standards for that feedstock. Is there any radiation inspection practice for the incoming feedstock before it goes onto the pyrolysis process? I did not see it in the application.
The company is.
That information will be forthcoming when they file the application with us. All right, so that will be more information that you'll be able to receive once we receive the full application.
Hello, was the last one. That was my
Yeah, here we go. Why would you invest that kind of money in a building? Something's wrong.
Okay.
Is this a done deal? We've been here for an hour.
Waiting
Is
for
this
answers.
a done deal? Waiting for answers. Nothing. Between the
quality and this Empire, Green? Because everyone here, just be upfront, you know, we're here wasting time.
Yes.
Is it a done deal
Do we
already?
have a voice?
Yes, you have a voice. There is the
And we're not
air,
stupid.
okay. For air quality, we have to look at the rules and regulations that apply to the facility. We evaluate what the application says, and we have to establish requirements that demonstrate that they will meet all applicable rules and regulations. There is a provision of the state code and that gives the director the authority to issue the permits, and there is a provision in our regulations that says if they submit an application that demonstrates that they will be in compliance with all applicable rules and regulations, the director shall. It does not say the director may, it says the director shall. So that if they can demonstrate that they will meet all applicable rules and regulations, yes, they will get a permit. However, that is not the only permit that they need. It is not just an air permit. They will also have to look at, the health department has to look at some stuff. There's water and waste regs that are also applicable. There are other things that apply. It is not just an air permit.
What about the location of it? It's gonna be in my front yard.
For the location, that is a zoning issue, which is a local issue. That is between the city and the county as to where they can put it. The zoning is a local issue. It's the city or the county. It is not up to air quality to decide that. Okay, we are going to take comments, and that's what we're going to move to now. We're going to just go directly to comments because
I'll be more than willing to tell you might see one here.
and I will tell you that that is not what we're here for, to take a vote. It is not up to us to vote on it.
He's writing the permit.
Yes, he is writing the permit.
He's writing the permit.
Yes, but
But it's one of the permits.
It's
It
one of the
has to have
permits.
more than one permit to run this place.
Exactly.
Okay, so if you would ask who doesn't want this here, every hand in here would be up. Ask how many people actually want it. Ask anybody in here. Any of you want
Excuse me.
it? You want it?
We're here to take comment on the permit. If you have signed up to speak, I'm gonna give the microphone over to Terry Fletcher. We will record your comments. We will respond to all of them in writing. And if you shared your email address or mailing address, you will get a copy of the response to comments before we issue the permit. Or if we don't issue the permit, you'll get a copy anyway. We will tell you what the requirements are, and we will make a determination based on all your input, but you have to realize that we have to follow the law.
I know you have regulations and laws you have to follow.
Let's just go to the comments.
I'd like to ask one question.
They're back there?
Yeah, sir, if you have a question for Empire, you're more than welcome to.
That's the second phase.
Yeah, you go through all these permits, all for the alternative, medical waste and whatnot. You get all your permits, you have to come back to city council to get a permit, put that out in the building.
No, they're past that. They're just waiting for
Can we get him a microphone?
Stick the mic up your butt, lady. Why don't you give to somebody?
We'd like to know what's being said.
Yeah, we can't hear you guys.
Got your own little circle.
We'd like to know what's being talked about back there, please.
Yeah, come on up. What's the problem?
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and start with public comments.
One other thing. You got a comment right here.
Right
One
there.
other thing now, okay? A lot of questions about who is Empire Diversified Energy. The fortunate thing is they're a publicly traded company. You go to your Google on your phone, you type in over-the-counter marketplace or over-the-counter stock filings. Type in their symbol, MPIR, or just put in Diversified Energy. You'll get about 130 some documents that can kick out, all their financials, disclosures, everything the company did before they got here and after they got here. There's a lot of information out there. A lot of people are blindsided by this. It's been public information probably for a year and a half, what they're gonna do now, what they're gonna do in the future.
If you know.
So there's information out there, you just gotta know where to find it. They're a publicly traded company, look into it. Okay, don't be surprised anymore. I think there's other things, there's a lot of information out there with the state. You got the Economic Development Authority, has a monthly meeting, all public. It's always posted, they've got an agenda, they've got hearings, it's all public knowledge. Okay, there's a lot of things going on in this valley right now. People need to do your own research and not wait till you have a meeting like this, okay? And then when you have a meeting like this, you'll be prepared to ask questions, to find out what's
We're
going on.
prepared.
Look it up.
Who the hell was that, Jack?
Okay, thank you. We're gonna go ahead and start taking official comments now. I'm gonna call, when you come up, you say your name, and any groups or organizations you represent, and then you'll begin with your comments.
Thank you very much. My name is Frank Rocchio. I'm actually going to have to use this back. Is it on?
Yeah.
Is this on? Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
This facility was described to the Follansbee City Council as a no-emissions, self-contained facility when submitting the building application. Yet we're here at this public hearing today for a notice of the intent to approve an air quality permit because this facility will in fact be emitting particulate matter, nitrogen oxides, sulfur dioxides, carbon monoxide, and volatile organic compounds, and operating 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. This misrepresentation alone should be grounds for the council to revoke the building permit. The risk of this facility to residents' health is clear. As stated on page 14 of the engineering report by DEP, there is a lack of supporting evidence in the application that 99 tons of carbon monoxide per year is accurate. This is 1 ton shy of Empire having to apply as a major source under the Clean Air Act. The EPA's Environmental Justice Report for Follansbee indicates we are already in the 90th percentile in the country for air toxic cancer risks. Steubenville's percentile is even higher. Given that DEP stated they do not think this rate is the true potential of the system, how can DEP ethically permit this as a minor source? Additionally, can DEP clarify how this proposed facility is not in direct violation of Section 11.2 of the West Virginia Infectious Medical Waste Rule 64 CSR 56, which states a commercial infectious medical waste management facility may not utilize incineration technology in any form, including the manufacture or burning of refuse-derived fuel in any form. The technology in attachment L in the air permit application was identified as a single-chamber incinerator. Furthermore, Empire is processing incinerate-only waste material. Page 10 of the engineering report further underscores the use of incineration technology. Quote, 2 emission units are incinerating undesired waste streams. And finally, on page 13 of the engineering report, DEP states, while the pyrolysis streams meet the definition of a pyrolysis unit and are thus excluded from NSPS subpart EC, the exclusion does not apply to the other combustion units associated with this process, which further underscores the use of incineration technology and is therefore in direct violation and not exempt from the aforementioned 64 CSR 56, which may not utilize incineration technology in any form to treat medical waste at a commercial facility. There are inconsistencies with respect to the amount of medical waste to be handled at this facility and whether or not it will be stored on site. Page 39 of the air permit application states that medical waste, quote, medical waste will not be stored on site, and that the facility will receive 5 truckloads of medical waste per day. But on page 248, the application states that 70 tons per day equates to only 4 truckloads. Page 9 of the engineering evaluation states 10 truckloads are needed to support the pyrolysis streams for 70 tons per day. The math in these reports does not add up, and there are no reported storage plans for the additional truckloads of medical waste and no storage plans for rejected medical waste that could not be processed by the facility. In addition, on page 162 of the application, yes is checked for is all medical waste generated on site, which does not align with the 5 to 10 proposed truckloads of medical waste arriving at this facility per day. Concerningly, the question is any waste received from outside the local government boundary is left completely blank. The city public's notice for the meeting states that, quote, all the medical waste to be treated originates outside the city of Follansbee, with the majority coming from outside the state of West Virginia. In addition, there are no reported processes in place to physically spot check the delivered medical waste to ensure the waste material received does not contain any radioactive or other unacceptable waste material as detailed in section 4.1.1a of the construction permit. In light of the inconsistencies between the building permit, air permit application, construction permit, and engineering evaluation, I believe issuance of this permit and any additional furtherance of this project would most certainly warrant an investigation from our environmental justice experts. Thank you.
He did his homework. Thank you all for coming today. My name is Natalie Rocchio. Empire's application and DEP's engineering report fact sheet make it clear that this facility will be an experiment conducted in our neighborhood. The application states, quote, there is a very minimal chance of any active biologicals at the time the waste reaches the RTO. Why is this acceptable to DEP? DEP states in the engineering report that Technotherm, the company who developed this equipment, had to use published papers on composition of the waste stream to theorize what medical waste is composed of and thus predicted what the synthetic gas composition would be, because no such facility exists in the United States processing this medical waste stream. Why is this acceptable to DEP? DEP states in the engineering report that the application did not provide an energy balance due to the variability of the medical waste. Therefore, the permit writer himself had to use information in the application and, quote, a few assumptions and the utilization of a process simulator for an estimated energy balance of the proposed process. Why does DEP find this acceptable? DEP states in the engineering report that it, quote, is difficult to estimate the emissions from this process and associated emission units. Why is DEP finding this acceptable? DEP states in the engineering report that Technotherm provided a predicted composition of the synthetic gas generated by the pyrolysis process. The synthetic gas may be too limited in free hydrogen to allow for the formation of hydrogen sulfur in the synthetic gas. But again, we don't know. Why is this acceptable to DEP? DEP states in the engineering report that, quote, no applicable emission standards exist for engines burning synthetic gas. Why is this acceptable to DEP? Furthermore, I'd like to point out that the engineering report says that this facility and its process designed and engineered by Technotherm are, quote, the exact same as the facility that was rejected in 2021 by Rhode Island's Department of Environmental Management. Part of DEM's justification in denying that permit for Rhode Island facility was due to the fact that Med Recycler proposed, quote, innovative and largely untested technology. Given how little is understood about this process and technology by DEP, why is any of this acceptable? How can DEP claim to be able to safely justify permitting this facility without making the residents of Follansbee your lab rats? Another reason, just one more minute, another reason for Rhode Island's denial was due to the inconsistencies during the application process. This application holds the same concerns with respect to questions about the medical waste. Page 39 of the air permit application states the facility would receive 5 truckloads of medical waste per day, but on page 248, the application states only 70 tons per day. Page 9 of the engineering fact sheet says 10 truckloads a day. However, the application says that no medical waste would be stored on site. There are no storage plans for the additional truckloads of medical waste and no storage plans for rejected medical waste that could not be processed by the facility. In the application, it doesn't explain how they would spot check. It said that they would rely on inventory sheets. On page 162 of the application, yes is checked for is all medical waste generated on site, which does not align with the 5 proposed truckloads of medical waste arriving at the facility per day. Concerningly, the question is any waste received from outside the local government boundary is left blank. How does DEP plan to permit given the incomplete application and detail inconsistencies?
Next we have Rocchio, followed by Tom DiBattista, and we'll go from there.
Hi, I'm Dee Rocchio. I'm a resident of Follansbee. How will the West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection properly evaluate the application for the medical waste pyrolysis facility when it doesn't have standards by which to judge pyrolysis? We have major concerns regarding the questionable material being brought into the area without anyone on the receiving end physically inspecting the contents of the medical waste shipments and what they purport to contain. What the technology and/or processes will be used to help ensure the exclusion of radioactive waste material and/or other non-permitted waste material. And given the apparent lack of physical spot check process and the received medical waste will contain unknown combinations of waste material, how can any confidence be placed in the ability to effectively calibrate emission controls? Thank you.
Next we have Tom DiBattista, followed by Debbie Vukovic. I apologize.
Okay, the Rockios gave you a lot of very pertinent information. Everything you need to know. I'm going to talk to you personally. Is this something you want in your backyard? No. Okay, listen. This is the first time. Walk outside. Go by the river. Go to the bridge. This is the first time in nearly 100 years, not this week, nearly 100 years, that we've had clean air and water. I'm not opposed to this gentleman. I'm not opposed to this gentleman making money. Let him make it in his backyard and pollute that area for a change. We are finally out from under all of this. Do we want to jump back into it? Plus, the pollutions that we've had before were from making steel and chemicals and everything. This is medical. All right? You got to wear a mask for the last 2 years because of COVID-19. Who knows what's in this stuff? Do you know? Do you know what's in any of this medical waste? All the things they're going to burn, all the things they're going to transport here? Okay? It's just more than we should have to put up with. It's more than the people of this valley need right now. We finally got it cleaned up. Let's try to keep it that way. Thank
you. Next we have Debbie Vukovic, followed by Shelley Smith and Patricia Beatty.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Debbie Vukovic. Natalie Rocchio said it very precisely. I had it all written down here. And
Can't you be closer to the microphone?
She's exactly right in what she said about the application process, because this company, Med Recycler in Rhode Island, has been rejected for their permit. You can find this on ecuri.org, by the way, a big article about it. And I just got this message in my water bill, 2 days ago? I did all this research in about, an hour and a half. So I think we're all caught off guard here. This seems kind of a backward process, and certainly the state of West Virginia, to even talk about this prior to getting a full application, I think is ridiculous. So I think, and that's what happened in Rhode Island. The application came, it said, only 5 trucks a day coming from within the state. Next thing you know, it's like 70 trucks a day coming from all over the country. So it seems like this is their modus operandi to run this business. And this is known in other trials that they've had in other states to put in other locations. So, but short of that, I won't repeat and belabor that topic. I did want to ask if there had been an economic and environmental impact study. Now maybe that's through the city or the company itself. I'm not sure who would be responsible for doing that, to see how this is gonna impact the economy here and the environment in general. So, with that said, thank you.
Next, we have Shelley Smith, followed by Patricia Beatty.
I've been a resident of Follansbee all my life, 66 years. First of all, I can't believe we're here tonight even discussing a medical waste incinerator plant in Follansbee. If people do not know what medical waste is, please talk to someone that does know. Please read about it. I have found out an awful lot about it. And trust me, once you do, you are not going to want this in the city of Follansbee. And I think that the Recchios have done a wonderful job. And Tommy, they've said it all. But please believe me, you do not want this in the city of Follansbee. So just read up on it, find out about it, you'll understand.
Next, we have Patricia Beatty, followed by Vicki Harper.
Hi, I'm Patricia Beatty. I'm from Colliers. I'm here just because I don't want this plant here. I don't want the air pollution of it. They can say what they want to, but it's going to hurt people. We got a lot of sick kids in this community, a lot of older people that got breathing problems. I don't think that we need this plant. I think if they want to build something that's going to help the people instead of hurt them. That's all I have to say.
Next, we have Vicki Harper.
Hi, I just moved back to the area about 4 years ago, and I had lived in California for 40. And I love that the area back here has gotten cleaner again. And I know that that property that Coppers is on is just a property that's going to sit for decades if it's not utilized by some industry of some sort, because it's already contaminated. We don't need something within city limits in such a highly residential community having it that close. And I don't know that much about the pyrolysis and all that, and I do believe that there is room for any new technology, but it has to be studied. And if you're going to build it in an area with a certain diameter, which again, that has to be studied to say what is safe to be away from people and just the safety of that. The carcinogenic, the cancer causing factors with this, when we are already in an area that is so cancer clustered, is just heartbreaking to me. And it almost makes me wish I didn't move here knowing that that's a possibility here. So thank you.
Okay, next we have Frank Slavacek, followed by Jim Coates. Sure. Well, if you have official comments, we need to get them on the actual record. So if you could come up and.
That'd probably be better when they have the other permitting process, the medical waste permit. They're more of the initiative.
Okay, understand. Thank you. Next we have Jim Coates. Mr. Coates.
I have a copy of my comments for your record. My name is Jim Coatson. I'm from Morgantown, West Virginia. I am Conservation Chair for the West Virginia chapter of Sierra Club. We were contacted by various concerns.
Thank you so much.
My name is James Coatson. That's better. I'm from Morgantown, West Virginia. I am the Conservation Chair for the West Virginia chapter of the Sierra Club. We were contacted by some local residents about this facility, and I very much appreciate that. Thank you. We are concerned about this facility because it does have some statewide implications, setting precedents for the first time this kind of a facility has been used. I'm particularly concerned because, as was mentioned, Rhode Island considered a facility such as this, and their draft permit had a number of provisions that are more stringent than what West Virginia DEP is proposing. Specifically, we would recommend that the air permit include a provision prohibiting the company from starting up until they have a valid license from the West Virginia Department of Health. We recognize that these health department rules specifically prohibit these kinds of incineration and pyrolysis technologies for commercial waste facilities. And while air quality may have some limits on what they can or can't issue, that is a kind of provision that should go into the permit. Second, Rhode Island actually explicitly recommended limits for a number of hazardous waste pollutants, and we recommend that those be included in the air permit. Those include things such as sulfuric acid, hydrogen sulfide, acetaldehyde, benzene, 1,3-butadiene, and a long list of other things. The one that scares me is dioxin. Nobody wants dioxin in their backyard. An issue that concerns me, the Rhode Island permit capped their tonnage at 35 tons per day. This draft permit caps it at twice that, 70 tons per day. Yet the emission limits for nitrogen oxides, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, VOCs are the same limits that are in this permit. And I would like some explanation as to how we can suddenly double the waste volume without increasing the amount of emissions. We'd recommend that the waste volume for Empire be capped at the 35 tons per day that Rhode Island had. Rhode Island explicitly required that radioactive materials are prohibited, as does this draft permit. But Rhode Island added the requirement that there be radiation testing and monitoring at the receiving entrance, and we recommend that that be added to the permit and that any loads containing radioactive materials either be sent back to the sender or to an approved radioactive waste disposal facility before they're unloaded. We recommend startup testing for the stack for hazardous air pollutants every 90 days and within 90 days of startup rather than waiting for 180 days. We think that emissions limits need to be more stringent for particulates. We recommend a monitoring method for the gas cleanup train. And we recommend that there be an odor detection monitoring requirement and an odor prevention plan, and that inspections for odors be issued every 90 days. Asking citizens to monitor for odors is not an adequate monitoring program for the state of West Virginia. I'll close with the comment that I've worked with Mr. Andrews. Appreciate meeting you finally for a number of issues. We have met, okay. He's been there for years. He is a competent engineer. Might want to work on his communication skills a little. We have disagreed on a lot of issues, but I do believe he is interested in doing the best for West Virginia within what the laws allow. If we don't think there are enough inspectors and monitoring, take that up with your legislators. They're the ones that approve his budget. And if there are local officials who have been misled by this company or have adopted support for this based on some inadequate information, well, you know, the old saying, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. That applies. And if there are people who have supported this based on incomplete or false information and they refuse to reconsider, shame on you. Thank you.
Frank Gage, you indicated that you maybe wish to provide comments.
They've already been answered.
Thank you, sir. Next we have Dwayne Nichols, followed by a Robert Charisco. I apologize for any mispronunciation. So, Dwayne Nichols.
thank you to the DEP for coming out and having a QA session. It's just that it appears to be premature because there should be already a health permit, or the permit process should be simultaneous. This is totally unfair for all of us to have to be subjected to a partial permit process. It's the same way here for the overall definition of what the process is. My chemical engineering background, although I'm retired, indicates that good engineering practice would mean there would be research, scale up, and there would be hard data on which to base these, as opposed to some guesses about what the emissions are. Let's consider it this way. It's reported in the newspaper that there would be no emissions. It's reported on some of the flow sheets that there would be couches and mattresses going into this process. It's reported on the flow sheet that the mattresses and the couches are going to be reduced to 15 millimeters. The couches that I've seen, you'd be hard pressed to get them down to 15 millimeters. So how it is that the DEP was able to accept this application and bring it to this point is a challenge to understand. It's reported in there that 15 millimeters is the same as 0.05 inches. And that's not correct. So that whatever the engineering work going in, we're unable to convert 15 millimeters into inches. The reason that I'm here is that particulates from these kind of processes will absorb hazardous compounds. Those fine particulates go into our lungs where they do damage. These fine particulates are being monitored because they go into your lungs to the bloodstream. They go to your heart, your lungs, and even affect one's brain. So if you have fine particulates from this kind of process, you're going to have particulates that aren't only dangerous in and of themselves, but because of the chemicals that are on there. There should be testing, not every 50 days or 90 days. There should be continuous monitoring for this kind of a process that would indicate an immediate concern. When I worked in the coal industry, we put monitors inside the coal mines that we were protecting from roof falls continuously, 24 hours a day. I've heard about budget surpluses in West Virginia, you know? Why can we have budget surpluses and have a deficit of capability within the DEP? Doesn't make any sense. The last thing I want to say is that when you look at this process, okay, it's said to be pyrolysis, but in good engineering practice, it fits into the category of waste incineration. And there's two ways to understand that. You can look at the flow sheets and you can see streams that say combustion air. You can look at the flow sheets and see air going into the process at various locations. Okay, so is it waste incineration? Yes, by another name here. Empire Green is another name. Did you ever think about why they chose green? Because they don't want us thinking about all of the other problems with it. That's my opinion, and I will submit that as something we call this day and age the greening of our society. Now, I believe there is an elephant in the room. We can't see him, but he's here. I don't think anybody has mentioned this yet. There is something that our governor denies. There is something that the head of DEP should be counseling us all on, and that is we live in the era of climate change. There are greenhouse gases that are coming all throughout our society. And guess how much greenhouse gas is being generated here? Hasn't been mentioned, and DEP won't mention it. I'm suggesting it's 24,000 tons per year. Not 24 tons per year, 24,000 tons per year, at least. It may be double that. I need to get off the topic.
We have Robert Jurisco. Thank you, sir. Next we have Megan O'Shea, followed by Anna Peterson.
Hey, first I just want to say I'm so glad to see so many people here tonight. I'm not going to cover the stuff that everyone else has already very clearly covered. There's discrepancies in these reports. The numbers aren't numbering, right? The math isn't mathing. But I also want to talk about the stuff that no one else is mentioning here, right? We're throwing these chemical names out there, dioxin. Does anyone really want to talk about what those cause in people? Right? Parkinson's disease, cancer, right? We already in Brooke County have, on average, a 1 year less lifespan than the rest of the country, right? So this place is coming in here with different numbers, different things. We're not getting all of the permitting process. We're getting one piece today, maybe in, another in a couple weeks, maybe another in a month from now. It's sort of like a trickle truth, right? Well, I mean, I did this bad thing, but it's not that bad, right? It is that bad, right? If we don't have all the pieces together, we're not seeing the whole picture. And the whole picture, if you take the time, read all the research, look at all the different permits that aren't going in the same papers, that are going to a readership of 23 people, right? We're not getting all the stuff together. We can't form an accurate, appropriate opinion because we're not looking at the whole thing because we can't. I'm not sure why the DEP is saying, well, we're gonna look at each of these permits separately instead of looking at the entire picture, because it's not showing the entirety of everything you need to see, right? I'm not sure why we're doing that. It seems a little bit unethical, and it can lead to really more catastrophe for our neighborhoods, right? I recently moved to this area. I live down in Wellsburg. I can smell stuff from that plant just down there, right? So we can say well, it's all well within our guidelines, but is it, right? I could say all day long, I'm doing everything right. And as long as no one ever checks me on it or they just take my word for it, I'm good, right? Right? I mean, I'm good up until I'm not. And here's the deal though, if I'm hurting someone else, that's the part that matters. This is gonna hurt the people in Brooke County, and it feels like they're preying on us because they know that we're an economically disadvantaged area. They know that we are desperate for more companies, and they know we're not gonna look because we need those jobs, right? I don't think that they probably expect this many people here tonight, but I'll show up to each one of these hearings. I'll keep mentioning it. I don't think we deserve to be the District 12 from the Hunger Games, right? We don't. We're better than that, right? That's why we're here. And I hope that the DEP takes this seriously, recognizes that the people who live here and who are going to be impacted the most don't want this.
Is around here, people live, the smell has been ferocious, and now it's starting to go away. What's all this plastic gonna do? Most of this medical waste is plastic, I assume. Well, plastic puts off a lot of smell, and people sitting in their homes, they gonna smell plastic all day? I don't think I'd want to do that. I live right up over the hill. So there's a lot of other people. They gonna smell them fumes up there? I mean, that's not particulates, that's the odor. So it's something to consider, not just with these permits, but the smell and that sort of thing. So the rest of it, you know, people have done a lot of research. It makes sense. Let's get common sense, you know. You want to live like you're living next to a BOF, smelling that, or a blast furnace, or, you know, or down by the Coke battery. So, something to think about.
Next we have Kevin McAbee, followed by Rachel Meyer. No? Okay, thank you. So next we have Rachel Meyer. So Rachel Meyer.
Hi everyone, my name is Rachel Meyer. I'm the Ohio River Valley Field Coordinator with Moms Clean Air Force. And so many really, really important things have been said already. People have talked about the fact that there's going to be particulate matter, very small particulate matter, PM 2.5, that it gets into our lungs, it goes into our bloodstream, causes cardiovascular problems, causes problems with respiratory issues, causes asthma in children. People have talked about that a lot of medical waste is plastic. And what happens when you burn plastic? You get dioxins in the air and all sorts of scary stuff. People have talked about that, what the hell I want to mention? Oh, VOCs. There's gonna be a high level of VOCs coming from this. And that VOCs cause cancer. So, you know, one thing I want to bring attention to is the location. Someone mentioned we're going to be lab rats with this. So when you think about where it's located, it's within a half a mile of the baseball fields. It's a little over half a mile from the park and the intermediate school. On the river, yeah. But when you think about those three specific locations, who's there? Who's getting exposed the most? Our kids. So thank you to everybody. It's really good to see everybody out tonight, and let's keep up with the fight.
Excuse me, I didn't get a chance to sign up. Could I speak, please?
Yes, ma'am. Come on up. Yeah, I was getting ready to ask if there was anyone that hadn't signed up. So if you want to, if you haven't signed up and wish to speak, if you want to just kind of line up back here, we'll just bring you up one at a time.
No.
My name is Iris Farrell. I've lived here all of my life. As far as being naive about this, the gentleman spoke that there are different rules with different states on their medical waste that is going to be brought in here. Let's not be naive and not think that it's not going to come from everywhere. In Pittsburgh alone, they are shipping to Mexico. Everything goes to Mexico. It's $122,000 a day they're shipping. This is a much bigger area with more hospitals than we have, so we can't generate that kind of money. They're going to generate the money. It's going to come from Florida. It's going to come from wherever the gentleman that's backing this, it's Florida, and it's going to come from around everywhere. And we can't be naive to the fact that all the plastics, the IV bags, the gloves, everything in there, needles, they do not burn well. They throw out toxins, poisonous dioxins, and no matter what you do, you can burn as much as you want, as high as you want to 1200 Fahrenheit, 800, 900. It will never burn completely. You will have that in your ash. In the ashes alone, you will have deadly toxins and dioxins. I don't care what you do with it. Pyrolysis is just another word for the same thing, burning. This is very dangerous. I am a cancer patient. If you look at the people that worked at Wheeling Pit, there are so many people. This is called the Cancer Valley in Pittsburgh hospitals. Do you know why? And exactly what's going to happen is everything from Pennsylvania is going to come here. It's going to be a cheaper cost. And it's going to make everybody anywhere backing this a lot of money. This is a $4 billion a year business. They don't care about you. Do any of these people want to move here? What is the value of your home's going to be? Do you want to move here when you find out this is here? I don't think so. Please, say a prayer tonight. People have to have consciences. Please, don't let this happen to our children. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Hello, my name is Sid Weiler. I live on Eldersville. I grew up on Highland Hills, breathing in the Coppers plant offshoots, so God only knows what's in my bones. I would like to confirm that EmpireGreenGen.com is your company's website? Yes, correct? All right, I would like to call attention specifically to this website. I'm going to read directly from the homepage, about a quarter of the way down scrolling. There's a section here that says, the pyrolysis system benefits. Bullet point, our technology will be safe for the environment, a system that does not pollute our land, air, or water. It's a closed loop system, meaning no release of toxic gas will be released into the air. Reduce our carbon footprint, generate renewable energy equal to the amount required to power over 1,000 homes every year in an environmentally friendly way. And a couple of other notes about jobs and landfills. I think we've established this evening that these are blatant lies. So the fact that you are not being transparent and lying about this in your most public-facing location, has been noted. I think that the majority of you did correct someone that said that you don't live around here and that you do. Your disrespect for the health of your community has also been noted. And it seems that you have the capability and resources to make change. We deserve better. You could do better. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Marcus O'Shea. I live over in Wellsburg. I love everything that's been said tonight. The attendance here is great. I figured we'd show up and there'd be 5 people. So this is awesome. Thank you. I don't want to reiterate what everyone else has said, but what I do want to say is earlier tonight, our representatives from the from DEP basically said that this is just on the air permit that they're looking at. So everything that we've said tonight, you guys all know. However, anything that we're saying is only going to affect possibly their decision, and they have to stay within the laws. So what we need to do, to have you guys do, especially the folks from Follansbee, you need to be showing up to council meetings. You need to be talking to your politicians, your representatives. Because if you're not showing up, then this kind of stuff happens, and then just out of the blue, we're like, what are you guys talking about? Next week we're doing this? And had we not had the voices that were popping up on Facebook and things along those lines, where a lot of our information started to be received, we would not have even known this was happening. When we're in these small town newspapers, a lot of people don't read them. We just got signed up for the Brooke County Review and just randomly saw that. This is the same company. Well, it is a subsidiary company or a different branch or whatever else you want to talk about it. So anyway, not to go too far into that, but I just want to reiterate, guys, the local government, you can get involved in there. The council meetings, we've gone to a couple of Wellsburg ones during the pandemic. They're hilariously entertaining to go to. You watch all the people, their cool personalities, and I'm sure Follansbee is just the same. Get involved.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
My name's Lindsay Fiesler, and I just want to go on record to say that we intend to engage the US EPA in an evaluation of the textbook environmental injustice this proposed facility represents. Under this administration, I doubt there will be much tolerance for this atrocity. Thank you.
You know, finally, we got rid of the Coke plant, and I did not want to see the Coke plant leave because it employed so many people, and I was working there. The day that we got word we were getting laid off, I mean, when it came out to everyone that the Coke plant was closing down, that's when I was getting laid off. And I mean, it's been a good employer for the area, but we're finally, it's gone. It's been a necessary evil to have, unfortunately. And we all know how it is to wake up in the morning. If it's blowing this way, you know it, you know, and then you just pray it's blowing towards Steubenville that day when you get up, because you can't even breathe. So, I mean, we don't need something else bringing the same stuff back, like everyone said. It's been so nice. When I come down Mahan's Lane off Eldersville Road and I can see this Ohio side, I'm like, it really took me back, not even thinking about it. I was like, why can I see so clear? And then I realized, oh, the Coke plant's not running, you know? All the emissions are gone. And we know how regulations go, especially at night. I'd be out on a dirt bike, quad, be up on the hill, and you see it pouring out of there. I mean, it is totally black at night, and you're like, come on, you gotta be kidding me, right? You know what I mean? Then the next day, it's the normal smoke coming out, you know, normal emissions. But you could tell on night turn, they're letting that sucker crank. They're letting it wide open. So these things are all good in the preliminary process. We're trying to see what the air quality will be, but real life experience, we know what ends up happening. I mean, the best case scenario is one thing, but we know what happens, and we see it. You know, whether it's intentional or not, it still happens regardless. But I think we need to keep in mind what we need here. I mean, something like, I always thought when I was a kid, why don't we have like a shoe factory here? Why don't we have things like, the plants in Wellsburg? Why are we stuck with things with all these emissions? And we're the tailpipe of the valley. I mean, you go to Akron and Cleveland, it's all Death Valley and Cancer Valley. And they know everyone coming from here has cancer. All these people want to have cancer treatments. And I've been working in construction. I'm a union electrician out of Steubenville's local. I've been in all these plants. I know what's in there. And to see some of this stuff, like the blanket gas system not even working at the Coke plant, and all the benzene being released in the air for years and not being covered, I seen the system. It's non-existent. It's rotted out. If people actually knew that that was happening, there would have been a lot bigger problem. The few short months that I was there as an outside contractor, I seen a lot of things that we had no idea were going on down there. So, and it just, no matter who comes in there, we're gonna end up with the same kind of deal. So, thank you.
I really don't need a mic, but I'll talk.
Yeah, you do.
My name is Susan Nolan, and I grew up in Follansbee, married and moved 10 minutes away, but I'm back. I've been here about 4 years. And my house is the first one to get this wonderful no emissions because I live right on Copper's Road. And I'm not very happy at all. You know, I'm right with Tommy. We all grew up here. We all know what was here. And everyone in this room knows a family member, friends, neighbors that have died of cancer. And it's because of what we had here. And so I really want you to think, because I will fight 150% because I'm not going to let them come in here with that. Don't tell me there's no admissions. All they've done, and I'm sorry, has blown smoke tonight. Yes. They have not answered questions. They have not been honest, and you need to be aware. So please make sure that you're fighting for this and keep it safe for all of us, all of our kids, and all our grandkids.
People say a lot of things, a lot more intelligent people than I. And if there's such a big deal about all the states that are around wanting all the money and all the tax revenues, West Virginia can't be left out. But why aren't there other states standing in line wanting to have this waste management or waste deposit in their community? They can call us hillbillies, they can call us rednecks, but they can't call us stupid for wanting it.
My name's Nick Sakinovich. I'm a 3rd Ward Councilman here in Follansbee, and I appreciate you all coming out tonight and expressing your opinions. And I'm going to echo what this gentleman said over here.
I have heard from some constituents, some people. I serve everybody. I'm an elected official. I'm an elected servant of the people, and I serve the people of Follansbee. And I appreciate, I want to hear from you. So spread that around, send me a text, an email, whatever. One way or the other, I want to hear from you, and I appreciate hearing from the people of Follansbee. Thank you.